Hey guys, do you like the new place? Now a full studio tour is going to have to come later because I'm not fully set up yet, and I'm also going to be doing something a little bit differently this month. From now on, up until the end of September, I'm going to be posting a video every single day in which I explain a synth sound and how to make it. So welcome to the first episode of Sound Design September. I hope that you stick around and enjoy it. Now as you can see, I've prepared the first 4 sounds in advance in this project over here. Today's sound is going to be the first one, and then tomorrow we'll cover this one, and then the day after this one, and the day after that one. But what I eventually want to do with this series is take inspiration from a bunch of different artists, combine them together, and then make a sound from scratch in the actual video. Of course, that is also what we're going to be doing today, but today we just have an already existing example that I've also made. So we're going to go through that example first, and then we get into actually sound designing something from scratch. Now, what I don't want to do with this series is take sounds from individual tracks and just recreate them. I think that that's the wrong philosophy. I've done that in the past, but I've stopped doing that a long time ago because I thought it would contribute a lot to copying other artists, which is not something that I want to do. I want to sit here and create new sounds and create new ideas. So that is going to be the goal with this particular series. So what that means is that you can suggest sounds in the comment down below that you want to see, but don't expect me to just take a track and a timestamp and then recreate the sounds that you hear in that track. Okay, with all of that out of the way, let's take a listen to the actual sound that we have over here. So as you can hear, we get a nice gritty FM, something that I would attribute to maybe say Electric Universe, Faders, or Ace Ventura, in that kind of style. And what you'll see with the patch inside of Serum here is that it's actually very, very simple. When it comes to the actual synthesis setup, you can see we're just using basic shapes over here. We have 2 sine waves and a saw wave over here. And the way that the FM works is that the sub oscillator is modulating the oscillator B over here, and then oscillator B is going to go into oscillator A. Now in this particular case, I decided to take output from both oscillator A and B. As you can see, both of them have their levels up. What you'll usually see in a setup like this is that only oscillator A is outputting any signal, but it is cool to take both of the oscillators here that are being FM'd, not obviously the sub oscillator, because that's just going to be a clean sine wave, but taking both of these oscillators and kind of mixing between them to get the tonality that you want. Of course, another thing that is important is how you set up the FM amounts here. There's a lot of fine-tuning that goes into that, which we will see later on in the video as well. But this is the whole idea behind a setup like this, is just setting up a basic type of FM like this and just tweaking a lot of the parameters until you get the actual texture that you're after. Now, there are some other tricks that I'm doing in this patch over here. Of course, there's the whole processing chain over here. We have some hyperdimension, we have a compressor, and then we have some distortion. Of course, these 3 in combination are also contributing to the grittiness. The main way that that is happening is that the hyperdimension is kind of altering the waveform in the ways that it's making it stereo, right? It's doing things differently for the left and the right channel. And that is then going through the compressor, which is bringing out a lot of the frequencies and kind of preparing the signal for the distortion. And then the distortion is actually massively increasing the amount of grittiness that we have. Now, I've talked about this before in a different video, but when it comes to a distortion like this, it is very sensitive to the input signal that you bring into it. So even the hyperdimension in here can change the tonality just based on the way that it's actually processing the sound. Because this will alter the signal in a way that isn't necessarily making it more gritty, but is affecting how gritty the distortion is making the signal. And the same is going to be true for the multiband compressor over here. Now after that we have our basic processing, we have some EQ to remove lower frequencies, and then we have delay and reverb, which in this case I've included in the patch. The reason why I'm doing that is because all of the patches that I'm making in this series will be available on my Patreon page. So having the delay and reverb included there will just make it so that you can load up the patch and immediately start playing with it. Now I want to take a little bit of time talking about the MIDI over here because there's some stuff that I'm doing in here that I normally don't do. First of all, what you'll see is that I'm playing an actual melody. That is really strange for me because when it comes to FM synths, I like to just stay in the root note. And one of the things that you'll probably notice, but a lot of beginners have difficulties with, is the octave. By default, in Ableton, your piano roll will look something like this and it will open up here. You'll start writing an A#3 over here. But in order to play the melody the way that I want it to be played, to have that gritty, like low frequency texture to it, you have to lower it by 3 octaves to A#0 or to any other key that you're working with in the 0 range over here. The second thing that is interesting is that there's some notes in here that aren't in key, specifically these ones over here. What I'm trying to achieve here is more of a pitch bend down effect as opposed to an actual melody over here. For one, the note is very small, so we're not going to have a lot of time to actually hear the key of that note. And the other thing, of course, is that within the length of one bar, we're just playing one of those notes like once. So it's a very short moment, so the whole melody isn't really going to sound out of key. For those that are interested, the key that I'm actually writing in is G sharp Frisian, so that is why we also see these notes over here. It is very strange seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 notes kind of all combined together, but it does seem to work for the particular synth that I've created here. Now I'm going to turn off the synth that we've just created, and I'm just going to create a new MIDI track down below here so that we can start working on a version from scratch. In this particular case, I want to show you how to do it in Vital because I think that is also interesting, showing you how to make it in a bunch of different synths. So what we need is we again need 3 oscillators. That is really the magic of this kind of FM sound. And in this case, I'm just going to load up all basic shapes over here, which I've set to my favorites, so that we can, of course, choose whatever waveform that we want. And now we just set up FM from oscillator 2, and then here, FM from oscillator 3. We'll turn this level all the way down. Here, for now, we'll turn this level all the way down as well, because we can first see if we can get the right texture with just one oscillator. And right now, with this setup, we get something that sounds like this. Now, you might hear that there's a little bit of like instability in this sound. You can hear that not every sound has the exact same tonality to it. Do you hear how there's like some ways that the frequencies seem to cancel in strange, interesting ways? It's just not the exact same texture every time. And the reason for that is because we have randomized phase all the way up here. So we want to turn that down for all 3 oscillators. And now, as you can hear, we get a very stable tone out of it. So now we can start screwing with the FM amounts as well as the starting phase that we want for all of the oscillators in order to get the tonality that we want. Maybe let's try some different waveforms as well. Something like that maybe. Of course, as I said before, we can also introduce the second oscillator here to get a little bit of extra, like a layer to it. This just seems to add a lower sine wave here in this case, but this may be useful to have so that we can push that into the distortion in the same way that we did before, inside of 0. I'm going to lower the attack a little bit, longer release here. Maybe let's make it a bit grittier like this. And now, of course, we don't actually want that low frequency in here, so we can use the filter over here to remove that. And then we add our delay and reverb, and we should be pretty much done here. Of course, tempo dotted, and then ping pong. Something like that. One of the things that you'll notice is that we don't have any stereo interest in this patch currently. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the main oscillator 2 voices, and I'll lower the D-tuning to a very low amount. Maybe let's give it 3 so that we have 1 in the middle and then 1 for the left channel and 1 for the right channel. A final trick that I want to show you that I actually implemented in that other patch as well, but didn't show there, is to use a very short envelope. So we'll set the decay we set the decay almost all the way down, and then we'll just assign that to the pitch of all 3 oscillators over here. You want to do all 3 because with the FM, it is important that they all stay in the same key, because otherwise they're going to phase shift against each other. And now what we can do is we can set all of the modulations amounts down here, and then we'll just turn them up with a macro. Make sure that the macro is set to 0.5 here. I can do that here directly. And you can start to hear that if we turn up the macro, we get a little bit of bite out of it. I'll quickly show you how that is done in Serum because it's actually much easier. What you want to do is you want to set up, again, a very short envelope that just has a very short decay and it should stay all the way down. And then inside of Serum, what you can do is just assign that to a random parameter and then go in here and set that to master tuning, which, as you can see, I've already done up here. Now, again, if you want to control this with a macro, you can do something like this, where we just set the macro as an auxiliary here. And now you have a macro controlling the amount of like pitch click that you want. But you can see that it's a little bit easier to do that in Serum than it is in Vital. I think there might be a way to do it in the same way in Vital as well, but then you would need to do it through the menu here maybe. Global. Let's see if there's a global pitch itself. You can modulate the beats per minute here. That seems interesting. Unfortunately, I don't know how to do the exact same thing inside of Vital where you have like a master tuning for it. I don't know if the per voice tuning that we see over here is working the exact same way. But I'm sure there's many smart people in the comments down below that will let me know how this actually works. And with that, we've come at the end of the patch and therefore at the end of the video for today. Now, I hope that you're going to enjoy this series and that you're going to support me throughout it. Again, for anybody that wants both of the patches that we made today directly, you can get them over on my Patreon page. And another way to support the channel is by watching some more of my content, so I'll leave 2 videos up on the screen for you to choose from. So just pick one and enjoy, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.